Large sentiments can make such a statement on a greeting card, but they can be a little bit intimidating to use. So today I'm going to share 3 easy ways to make them shine. Hi there, it's Therese and I'm here for Altenew, and I've got the Modern Hello stamp set to share with you today. And this is a very unique stamp set because it actually layers 2 sentiments to create one, and it intertwines. If you have a look at the scripty font, it actually intertwines around the word hello. Now, I found that such a large sentiment like this really needs to be created as you design the card. It's something that you need to work your card designs around. You can't sort of add it later on because it is so big. So I thought I'd share a few different ways to do just that, starting with a background panel. And I have here, it's the Meadow Builder Stencil set, and it's a 3-piece stencil set, but you can actually use these stencils in varying amounts, so you can make your background less or more busy. And I was going to go full on here, so I just basically grabbed a piece of paper and my ink blending tool and added lots of layers of color, just turned my stencil around. I didn't follow the guide sheet because it's a very forgiving stencil. And I'm using the mixed media inks here from Altenew, and they are blending just beautifully together and really pretty colors too. I was careful not to use colors that were too dark here because I knew that I was going to be stamping on top of this with my large sentiment. So that is something to keep in mind when you are creating a panel that you're wanting to stamp a sentiment directly on. You want your sentiment to be seen, so make sure you're aware of what colors you're choosing for your panel in the background. You could also use design paper instead of creating your own panels with stencils. There's so many different options. How pretty are these colors together though. And because they're pigment inks, they are a little bit slower drying, so I did actually hit it on a low heat with my heat tool to make sure that they were dry. Now I have an aperture window here that I've just cut from some scrap cardstock, and it's an A2 finish size, and I'm just roughly working out where I want my finished card to be on this panel, and I'm going to be cutting a die cut heart from the Halftone heart set out of the center, so I'm kind of placing that where I think it might look nice, and then I can simply cut down my panel to the same size as the front of my A2 card. If you had a A2 sized rectangle die, that's something you could do to make it a little bit easier, but I found it really easy just to run it through my trimmer. Now for the sentiment, I am using grid transparency just to get my centering correct, and I have a template of the heart that I'm going to be using as well. And then I can come in and stamp my hello. I'm doing this with some black ink here because I know that this needs to stamp over top of all of those flowers that I've already blended onto my background, and I want it to be able to be bold enough to show. And I have actually used my Obsidian Pigment Ink here to do that. And then I can run the whole panel through my die cutting machine with the Halftone hearts. So this is going to be a 2-for-1, and I can use the negative and the positive portion. But before I do that, I want to actually stamp a sub-sentiment below my hello, and I forgot to do that before, so I just simply held it all in place in my MISTI. So if I did miss stamp, I could come and re-stamp it again if I needed to. So this sentiment heart, I want to totally emboss with some clear embossing powder, and I'm covering the whole heart with some embossing ink. And then I did actually come back 3 times and do this, and it just made it such an amazing almost like a tile. It was so shiny and with so many layers, it just looks really pretty. I had to wait in between adding the embossing ink. If you're really quick, you can actually, as soon as you heat it, dip it back into the powder and go again. I just find it easier to wait a few seconds for it to cool down, add some more embossing ink, and then add another layer of the embossing powder and hit it with my heat tool. And it did warp just a little bit, but I'll show you how to fix that in just a moment. And what I decided to do next was use the pigment inks again, but this time I wanted to create a really lightly splattered background. So I did do that with the yellow and again with the pink. And just, that didn't take very long to dry at all. I just mixed it with a little bit of water and flicked it on with a brush. And once my spattered background was dry, I came in and stamped out a green hello, because if you look at these layered sentiments together, some of them look better with a lighter background or a darker front. I just kind of thought that the lighter background with the dark sub-sentiment over the hello really helped that word sis to show just that little bit better. I've added some foam to the back of my heart panel here, and I can just lay it over top of where the sentiment is. I find this is a much easier way to center everything rather than work directly on the front of my card. And I can just add a little bit more adhesive to the back panel before I add it to the whole card front. And it just looked a little bit off center, so I put another sub sentiment, and that's another great thing about this set. It does have a lot of little sub sentiments to use on it as well. And also an enamel dot heart. And that's my first card finished. And like I said, this card actually became a 2-for-1. And this is how I fixed the warping on my hello card center. I simply just cut another 2 hearts out of some cardstock and glued them together with some liquid glue. And that didn't take very long to dry at all, and almost feels like a heavy chipboard piece, even more like a tile. And I wanted to create a panel for the front of my card and just cut that from some of that splattered cardstock because I just wanted it to be a little bit subtle. I adhered that to the front of my A2 card just using some glue tape runner, and my heart, I actually wanted to pop it right off the front of the card, so I needed it to be a little bit higher. And here's a hack that I've seen on YouTube and think is a great one, so I thought I'd share it with you here. Double up the foam tape before you cut it up, and that just is a great time saver, and you know that each piece that you cut is going to be exactly the same size. And I just adhered that to the center of the front of my card, and I can't stop touching it. It's really shiny, and that clear embossing powder just melted to perfection. Okay, we're on to our third design now, and I wanted to actually mix a bloom with a large sentiment, and this does come down to the planning. Because this sentiment needs to fit on the card exactly where I want it to be, I need to make sure that the placement of my flower is just so. Now this is from the Fresh Bloom stamp set, and I'm using the pigment inks. I've kept the same colors throughout the whole video here, and I'm layering up all the different layers of the flower. And as I'm doing this, I'm actually stamping out 2 flowers, even though I'm only showing you one. And I didn't do the outline or the base of the flower. I just wanted sort of the layers of the flower to shine through. So the second flower that I stamped simultaneously, while I had everything all lined up, I did die cut with the coordinating dies. And before I commit to stamping out my sentiment, my big sentiment here, I did make sure that everything was going to align right by holding the A2 aperture window I've got, as well as the grid transparency. Then it was easy just to add my word hello in the Coralberry ink and come in with the Obsidian to do the scripty font over top. I stamped out a couple of leaves directly onto my panel, and I worked out exactly where it was all going to be, and then cut that down to the same size as the front of my card, and then I can adhere that directly to the front of my card, as well as add my leaves and my flower by popping them up on the front. Now, of course, everything that I've used today will be linked in the description below, but it's also going to be at the blog. Now, this is actually a release day for these awesome products, so don't forget to head there because there's always a fabulous giveaway on release days. We are in August 2021. I can't believe it's August already, but that's where we are. Thanks so much yet again, and don't forget to comment and like and subscribe if you haven't already. We appreciate every visit that you make. Happy paper crafting. Bye.
Hello there! Did that video just spark your creativity? And do you want more project ideas and inspiration videos too? Well, if you do, please make sure that you subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, make sure that you do click that notification bell so you don't miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye!